Yeah, Sam has kind of established himself as one of the best Lantern control players. Here's right now. Just last weekend at the Invitational, the Star City Invitational down in Roanoke, Sam Black top 8'd, and I believe, I'm not quite 100% sure, but I believe he had a perfect record in the Swiss playing Lantern control.
Yep. So Niklas playing a Scavenging Ooze. Sam using a pair of Mishra's Baubles to go through his deck. We'll find out exactly what that Pithing Needle was on. But since it was kind of a blind Pithing Needle, I'm not sure it probably wasn't that relevant.
So Sam needs lands.
Yep. Uses Ancient Stirrings, gets the Dark Shores.
I'm pretty excited to have that untapped black source that turns on both of these discard spells that are in his hand.
Yep. So he leads with the Inquisition. And both spells in Niklas' hand available to take. So the Liliana, the Last Hope, and a Maelstrom Pulse. The other two being land, being a Ghost Quarter and a Raging Ravine. What's likely the target for Sam?
So it depends on what's in Sam's hand. I think that you take the Liliana because Niklas could just play it on the following turn, and then you cast another discard spell to take the Maelstrom Pulse before you play a card like Ensnaring Bridge that's supposed to lock your opponent out of the game.
Right, so Sam actually has another Thoughtseize in hand, so he's ready for that, but does not obviously have the mana right now. Niklas untaps.
Well, that's not the worst top deck. It looked like he drew another copy of Liliana.
Ooh.
And he can start taking that up right away.
Oh, but the different type of Liliana of the Veil.
The other 3-mana Liliana.
3-mana Lilianas are amazing in general.
Yeah, they're both very, very good. I've seen deck lists that play as many as 4 and 2 recently, like Abs Endless and whatnot. I'm like, wow.
And there's a recent rules change that allows you to have both of them side by side.
Yeah. And it's pretty nice to have them both side by side because the one cleans up the little stuff and the other one makes them sacrifice the big stuff.
So Sam knows Niklas's last card in his hand, so he can choose to actually Thoughtseize him, get rid of the Maelstrom Pulse. Might just leave it there because he's not presenting anything worth killing.
Yeah, and by leaving that Maelstrom Pulse in Niklas's hand, Sam Black is, in some ways, making the Liliana +1 more of a punishment for Niklas. I, however, think he's still going to fire it off. No? Okay.
I actually think that's exactly like what he's doing. He's trying to leave him with cards in hand so the Liliana is not, the tick up hurts him.
Yeah, now, see, Niklas is in an interesting situation where he doesn't really want to tick up this Liliana because in doing so, he would either be discarding Maelstrom Pulse and or Tarmogoyf, both of which are integral pieces of his game plan right now. He doesn't know that Sam has that Thoughtseize in hand for the Maelstrom Pulse. So
Niklas attacks with his Scavenging Ooze. Follows up with a very, very cool-looking Japanese Tarmogoyf,
which is quite large. It gets real big real fast against decks like Lantern where they're sacrificing artifacts. And
yeah, so he has artifact, sorcery, land, Planeswalk. 4/5.
And now Niklas, a land on top.
So Sam also has the Codex Shredder as well, so it actually can set up. So Sam finally chooses to use that Thoughtseize on the Maelstrom Pulse after setting up the Lantern.
Just going to go ahead and exile the Pirate Spellmom to prevent any sort of shenanigans, if you will.
So there's a Chandra on top of his deck, but he actually doesn't have any red mana, so that card is not going to be able to play it. So Niklas ticks up Liliana.
Niklas does only need one red source, however, to cast this Chandra if it were to somehow stay in his hand and not be discarded to Liliana because of the Ghost Quarter. That would allow him to go and find a Singleton Mountain in his deck.
Okay. Sam kind of stuck on 2 land for a bit. He doesn't have a bridge in his hand, though. So he's kind of in trouble here. He doesn't have any reasonable way to deal with the creatures. And the creatures are, I believe, 7 power?
Altogether, it sounds about right.
And so he's close to... Removes the Mishra's Baubles.
So Sam needs to find an ensnaring bridge here.
Yeah, but he needs a land and an ensnaring bridge, so this is actually kind of rough. He may not actually have enough time. So one of the things that Niklas is trying to do, I believe, is to try and deny Sam, like, mana.
Yeah.
He saw the Glimmer Void on top of the deck, so he used his Ghost Quarter to essentially force Sam to shuffle, almost using his own Lantern of Insight against him, hoisted by his own petard.
I mean, it's a wise decision. I think when you've played a lot of games against this deck, you start finding yourself winning games that you were losing when you first started playing against Lantern Control, because it is a different game than the Magic we're used to. There are only so many things that matter, and if you can sculpt your game plan in such a way that you recognize what they need at any given time.
So Sam reveals a Codex Shredder. So looks like this might be 7 power.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
6 total, actually.
Yeah, so Sam's down to 2 here.
It seems like he probably needs... Yeah. Sam knows that he can't stop all the creatures, so he concedes the first game, and then we're game 2. Both sideboarding here.
And I really like the way that Jund has the ability to sideboard. I think Ancient Grudge, a card that hasn't seen as much play more recently as it used to, is one of the better cards against this Lantern Control deck, because even when they mill it, you're able to use it against them. He gets an extra copy of Kolagon's Command, which is not only a shatter, but also has some other type of effect.
Is Blood Moon good against it? This Jund deck has a Blood Moon. They do have a lot of non-basic lands. What do you think of the strength of the Blood Moon is versus Sam?
I'm not sure you want it on the draw. I think that there are... I think it is something that you might want to side in one of the two, because it turns off a lot of stuff out of Sam's deck. Like, for example, the ability to Academy Ruins is really important for him. However, the thing is that Sam's deck, is so colorless heavy that having a card like Blood Moon in your deck in many ways just dilutes your game plan and means there's one less card that Sam has to deal with. And the thing about Lantern Control is you have to deal with what they have initially, and then you can control their draw steps forever and make sure they can't win. But if what they have initially is too powerful, or you don't have the right set of answers, then you end up losing. So I think I'm solid in my head that I would not bring in Blood Moon here.
Yeah. Also, Sam has like 4 Mox Opals, so that actually gives you an opportunity to get out of the color lock that Blood Moon presents.
Yeah, and that, there are some versions of the Lantern deck that play, different lands that are also, like Inventor's Fair and whatnot. But this deck does not. This deck does not play those cards.
Yeah, this really seems like a nightmare matchup for Lantern, because one, there's probably like almost 7 or 8 artifact kill spells.
Mm-hmm.
There's discard, so you can cover some of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's cards like even surgical extraction to actually break up the combo permanently.
Hazoret is very strong.
Yeah,
Just discarding cards to Hazoret over and over again.
I really think this is a matchup that's not really set up well for Sam. So, obviously, Lantern Control can get these amazingly fast locks that it doesn't matter how many answers you have, they can deny every single one of them. So, it's possible for Lantern to get out of that, but they really don't even care that much about the Ensnaring Bridge, which is actually one of the most powerful cards on the Lantern deck. Yes, it hurts them occasionally, but Jund has so many ways to get out underneath the Ensnaring Bridge lock.
Yeah, what Sam really needs to do is get the Ensnaring Bridge out there and then have Niklas not have an answer to it in hand and then just control his library so he's unable to find the answer to the Ensnaring Bridge.
So Niklas sacrifices his Verdant Catacombs to get a Overgrown Tomb. And goes straight all the way down to 15 with a Thoughtseize. Sam showing a Pirate Spellbomb, a Mox Opal, a Whir of Invention, a Maelstrom Pulse, and some land. What do you think should take?
I don't know. I think that Maelstrom Pulse is the most interactive card, and his hand is not that strong in general. However, because his hand is not that strong, taking the Whir kind of makes his hand do all sorts of nothing. And I think that when you're playing a deck like Jund, your opponent interacting with your cards isn't as scary as your opponent doing their thing. So you want to be using your discard spells to, effectively pull apart their game plan before you start enacting your own.
So one thing that's really interesting, Niklas won game 1. He played, which means that Sam made him go first. So that's a really, really surprising thing for, any deck to do, especially in Modern.
Yeah, and there are Modern decks that choose to draw in most matchups, interestingly enough. For example, the 8-rack deck, I found when I play that deck that I had much more success choosing to draw than when I chose to play first, which is definitely an outlier situation.
Yeah. Do we think that because it's such a 1-for-1 deck, Jund is at least, Sam figures that he just needs the extra card?
To some degree, I think that the idea is that Niklas has less opportunities to draw the specific answer that he needs before Sam can start controlling the game. And he imagines that Nick's post-sideboard plan will be not very aggressive, if you will.
Sam's hand's not particularly good. His mana's bad. His Mox Opal is very far from being turned on.
Yeah, and I really like that Niklas chose to take the Pirate Spellbomb there, because in doing so, he made sure that this Mox Opal was going to be bad for quite some time.
And really, none of the other cards were particularly threatening. Okay, Tarmogoyf. I believe that Tarmogoyf is 3 power.
I believe you're correct.
Artifact, land, sorcery. Keeps attacking with his Scavenging Ooze.
And we know that Sam has Maelstrom Pulse in hand, but it's not even the greatest here. He's spending 3 mana.
Yeah,
dealing with something that costs 2.
Is he just going to fire it off just to make sure to give him some amount of time?
He could.
He could alternatively, he's a Whir of Invention, so he could Whir for 2, which would also kind of help get the Mox Opal active too. So that's a small benefit, though he doesn't really need the mana. Dark Confidant from Niklas. Sam actually does not Whir as well. Draws an Ensnaring Bridge, so certainly something that could help him here.
Yeah, it's one of the cards he most wants to draw here. He needs to empty out his hand, but Ensnaring Bridge is the card that could save him here and get him back into the game.
But he doesn't want Niklas to start like getting some card advantage with that Dark Confidant. Okay. So Sam is on 13. The Confidant is now 4-5. And whoa, Hazoret the Fervent.
Yeah, and this card is great against Lantern because, they're emptying your hand, you're emptying your hand, and the activated ability just mows down their life total, and there's not much they can do to interact with it.
Yeah, so, Sam took... So Sam plays an Ensnaring Bridge, locking out the attack, and he whirs, and I believe he's going to whir for something like Witchbane Orb, so he cannot get... Oh, no, he's going for Pithing Needle, so that naming Hazoret almost definitely. So now he's actually covered all the creature threats, at least on the board right now. So Sam on a very precarious 2. Still not out of the woods yet. I mean, there's Kolgan's commands in Niklas's deck, so he almost loses on the spot. He also has some amount of lightning bolts, though it's possible that he did not keep them in the deck.
I mean, all Niklas needs to do now is find an artifact removal spell, and if he's able to find it before Sam can assemble, specifically Pixis and the Lantern, then the Ancient Grudge could even flash back here.
Yeah, the problem with a single artifact removal spell is all the welding jars, actually. So Niklas actually drew a...
Well, that'll do.
Oh, jeez.
Plus...
Sam's is looking at it and is like, well, I can't deal with that Chandra Torch of Defiance, and so Niklas is able to do the last 2 damage, wins that match, moves to 6-0. That's, locks in day 2. Now, obviously, that's not what you look for when you're 6-0. You really hope to, set yourself up really well.
Yeah, I'd like to talk for a minute just about Niklas's version of Jund. So he did bring in 1 copy of Blood Moon. This deck looks beautiful. Lots of one-ofs. He's playing 4 of all the most powerful cards. He has, just great amounts of, disruption. He just plays the Jund game as it's meant to be played. And I think Hazoret is a great addition to Jund. This is a card that I have not seen much of in Jund decks. And I'm excited every time I see it played this weekend. When I was walking around in between rounds, or in between having to commentate on rounds, I saw quite a few players playing Jund who were at higher up tables, and I've been impressed with this deck. I mean, it's miserably bad against anybody who plays Urza's lands, but it's very good against just about anybody else.